Welcome to Screen Drafts, the podcast where experts and enthusiasts competitively collaborate in the creation of screen-centric best-of lists. I am Draft Commissioner Clay Keller, here with me for this very special Seattle Queer Film Festival live show, jumping into the co-commissioner seat because my usual co-commissioner, Ryan, is otherwise engaged this evening. The man of the hour putting this whole thing together, Mr. Billy Ray Bruton.
Well, it's just a pleasure to be here, Clay, for this decidedly queer afternoon of Screen Drafts.
A decidedly queer afternoon, indeed, Billy Ray. Thank you for filling in for Ryan. Thank you for inviting us to do a show here live for the festival. We're going to jump right into it. Could not be more excited to have these guys back on the show. I think for their third draft, if I am not mistaken. First, they did a fantastic drag films draft, and then, honestly, I don't know if I've told you guys this, one of our most popular episodes ever.
Wow.
Is your 21st Century Best Actress winning films draft. It just delighted to have you guys on. From the This Had Oscar Buzz podcast, we've got Joe Reid and Chris Feil.
What's up?
Hello.
You for having us.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Thank you for being here. When Billy Ray said, Clay, we need to do a live screen drafts for my festival, and it's got to be as queer as we can make it. I was like, you know what?
Who are you gonna call?
I've got to go to Joe and Chris, and I think pretty quickly we landed on this topic. Now, obviously, if people are not familiar with This Had Oscar Buzz, first of all, they're clearly not listening to the top film podcasts on the internet. But your podcast, I love the premise of your show, which is things that are on the Oscar margins, Oscar adjacent. It's movies that had, as in described well in the title of your podcast, had Oscar buzz, but then failed to deliver on that promise. And it's such an interesting corner of films and film history, these prestige projects that have now sort of been lost to obscurity. But that's what one of the things I love about your show is when you announce what movies you're doing, there's always that like, oh, right, that fucking movie.
I had one of that today.
I forgot about that.
I texted a friend of mine, and he was like, "You haven't done that one yet?" I'm like, "I know, imagine."
Well, and it's also it's a little bit of that, and some of the titles that we've done lately have been the kind of thing where, because our premise also says it has to get 0 nominations, we also have done like the type of things like we just had To Die For. Was it this week, Joe? And that's like, how did that get 0 nominations? But that's what it is.
Exactly. Yeah. Just an opportunity to get just infuriated all over again on behalf of some of these movies. I know this week or next week you're doing my personal favorite Wes Anderson film, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
My personal favorite as well.
And his lowest rated on Rotten Tomatoes, which
his
is
only rotten movie.
Yes.
People are fucking stupid. That's
I mean, like, Rotten Tomatoes, it doesn't mean everything.
Grain of salt.
But
Right.
if you're going by hard data, it is his worst reviewed
That movie is not a Rotten Tomato. It is a fried green tomato. It is delicious and wonderful.
It is an Italian tomato salad, something.
Yes, there we go.
I like that.
While I've got you guys here, let's take a quick tangent. Wes Anderson came up. You guys are the experts. What would we say is Wes Anderson's queerest film?
That is interesting. I mean, there is something. I don't know why I keep bringing up Fantastic Mr. Fox. There's something about. I mean, first of all, it's the one with Meryl Streep, which is like queer adjacent, I feel like. And also it has that like, the son who like can't ever like, be good enough for his dad and this sort of stuff, not to like read into whatever that character's name is, Jason Schwartzman's character in Fantastic Mr. Fox. Also, I just love that movie.
Excellent performance. That's a good answer. I mean, Willem Dafoe's shorts in Life Aquatic do quite a lot of work.
This is true.
I don't know. There's also something.
Well, I should mention French Dispatch too has an actual like queer character as one of its major characters. So,
okay, great. So I have obviously that hasn't come out yet, but you have seen it, Joe.
I have. It's it's interesting, and it's very episodic. So it's very easy to be like, this part I like, and this part I like a little bit less, and this whatever.
Yeah.
But there are some very good parts of it for sure.
I'd say, aside from the fact that one of his defining characteristics is that he is a Lothario who seduces women, I feel like there's something very queer about Ralph Fiennes' character.
I was about to say the same
Grand
thing, the exact
Budapest.
same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Well, he does sleep with all of his friends, so take of that what
That's
you will.
true. That's true. What makes you think it's his first time? That's a little James Bond for you. Okay. Why I love having you guys come on and actually talk about the Oscars. Obviously, you guys get to talk about near Oscar things constantly, but I know you're both fans of the actual ceremony and the awards and the history of it.
Warts and all.
Of the thing itself, of the movies that have actually achieved that Oscar status. And I thought it would be fun. I mean, we all just kind of thought this would be a fun topic to do Oscar-winning queer films. You guys know the history of this stuff better than I do. Like, what is the Oscars' relationship with queer stories, queer characters? I know, at least in the last 20 years or so, it seems like every year there are some really big prestige projects that take on a queer story. But what's the history there? Is there something unique and special about queer stories that get awards attention?
It is definitely a very limited scope. Like, we're also dealing with a limited set of movies here too. Of course, we can say that it's probably gotten better over the past decade. There's still such issues of representation throughout, and who gets to actually tell these stories. The Oscars, they're definitely improving, but there is still a lot of room for growth as well. Yeah. But it goes back further than you would think. There are some movies that might have been controversial in the time, but it's not necessarily limited to, say, the past 25 years that you're seeing movies with these kind of stories getting loved by Oscar.
Yeah, I think it's again, it's the evolution is important to talk about. I think the further you go back, the more you have to. There are grains of salt that need to be taken when you're talking about some of these movies, and these are movies that spoke to the eras that they were in, or were very much existed, the eras that they were in. But yeah, it's still one of those things where you look at it and just be like, okay, there is a huge, great, diverse world of queer films, and then the ones that get Oscar attention almost by it's where the bottleneck kind of happens a little bit, and it makes for an interesting set of films.
Yeah, interesting. But I am very curious to see, obviously, what ends up on the final list. But yeah, then what kind of representation we get. Obviously, a lot of the in front of the camera talent, the directors often telling these stories up until extremely recently.
Yes.
At least are straight people, or people who exist as straight in the industry. So I'm very curious to see what kind of spread we get in terms of the people who are creating these things, the people telling the stories. In addition, and am I incorrect in assuming that pretty much most Oscar movies across the spectrum, particularly these queer ones, are mostly very serious movies, or are we going to get some diversity of genre this evening?
There could even be perhaps in a movie or two that we pull, there might be diversity of genre within a single movie. As far as they're all serious and harrowing, I think some of the ones that are maybe a little bit more problematic that we might not necessarily choose are the ones that for that prestige, and of course, one of the problems is Oscars fall for it a lot of times, is that the who is telling those stories is the question. But if you go back into the history of Oscar with things like documentaries, you will find perhaps some Oscar wins that we might pull out for this draft.
So is what you're suggesting is that the Danish Girl is going to be number one on your list?
Let me tell you, if Joe wants to trick me into burning my veto really quickly, he'll pull it out just for that purpose.
That would be a dastardly strategy move on my part, would it?
Anyway, if I have 7th place, I've picked the Danish Girl. Joe, please veto me.
Save Chris from himself. Yeah, the Danish girl. All right, I feel like that's the last time we will say those words over the course of this episode. I
willing.
presume.
Yeah.
God willing.
I presume. Yeah. So yeah, I do not pretend at all to be an expert on any area of this. I hope I will have seen most of these movies, but that's why we brought on Joe and Chris to be the experts. Billy Ray, you are guest commissioning and color commentating on this episode. When I presented you with this topic, what immediately came to mind? Is this an area of film? Do you tend to like prestige Oscar-y type movies that have queer themes, or what?
Generally, no. Generally, those are the queer films that I typically stay away from. I'm more of the sort of indie queer spectrum of film, and documentaries being the exception. I'm a big doc fan, so but there are some interesting choices. I was mainly interested in this topic because I was like, holy shit, I have no idea what they will play. And that's really exciting for me to not know what the hell's going to get played. Because like they said, it's not a huge pool of options. Like it's a very narrowed down list. So, but I'm super excited. And also to correct myself from earlier, you can respond in the chat to people, evidently. People are... the chat's going on, so if anybody wants to pop on and say,
"Holy
hey,
mackerel!" There's a whole chat going.
Hey, what's Amy Meek from Boston? Hi, welcome. Yeah.
My goodness. Yes, Joy Novak saying
boy.
this topic is making me upset again that Portrait of a Lady on Fire wasn't even nominated.
And
Here.
Same. We would also be dealing with a different pot of movies if we were also talking about nominees, too. Because, if nominees were a different thing, you could be talking about a few of Todd Haynes' films, but we're going to be talking exclusively about winners. Joe and I have also said we don't want to do necessarily queer-coded things. We're going to do explicitly gay characters, so that rules out something like Rebecca. It rules out something like All About Eve. Unfortunately, it would rule out something like The Little Mermaid, where it's like you could also be pulling out a win from a queer person.
Right, yes.
On top of,
Unfortunately, the game demands clear parameters that give us clear eligible topics. If this is your first time watching the show, I'm going to explain the rules here in a second. But yeah, we have these strict parameters because we don't want to have a subjective eligibility argument within every single pick discussion as well. That would make the show interminable.
That's not super fun, Clay. That's not like a great way to spend your time.
No, that doesn't make for the cleanest show. So we like to have the parameters really clear up ahead of time. And really, when you make the parameters very, very specific, it forces the GMs to get creative within those boundaries, and you end up getting some really exciting, unpredictable lists as well. Let's get into the rules of Screen Drafts. Screen Drafts is a serpentine style draft. Our two guest GMs, Joe and Chris from This Had Oscar Buzz, are going to be alternating placing picks on the single definitive best of list for today's topic, which is queer winner Oscar films. So, no, Oscar winner queer films. Queer Oscar winner films queer.
We got there eventually. The words made together. They got together eventually.
It all came out in the end there. Oscar winning queer films. There are 7 spots in this game. If you are drafter A, you get to make picks 7, 6, 4, and 2. That is 4 picks overall. If you are drafter B, you make picks 5, 3, and 1, which is fewer picks, but they're weighted more towards the top of the list, and you get that number 1 pick at the end of the game. The draft order is determined by some trivia. Billy Ray has prepared a trivia round for us. Whoever wins gets to decide if they would like to be drafter A or drafter B. There are vetoes in this game. These live shows are non-canonical with the blessings because we roll them over and stuff like that. But since I don't know when this show will hit the main feed, we're just going to keep it isolated in terms of the blessings. Each Joe and Chris get 1 veto. Here's how a veto works. If the other player plays a title that you disagree with, either its inclusion on the list at all, or maybe just its inclusion at that particular placement, you can veto it. It knocks it off of that spot, but not out of the game. It goes back into the pick ether. and can be played by anyone higher up on the list. The person who gets vetoed will then just have to give me a replacement pick for that spot. In terms of eligibility, we talked about it a little bit already. Any feature-length film that has explicitly queer characters, queer themes, a queer story, and won any Oscar is eligible. So they didn't have to win, obviously, like picture, didn't have to win screenplay or actor, whatever. Any Oscar, including technical Oscars, make it eligible. As Chris was saying, when you punch in, Oscar-winning queer movies into Google, that gives you a lot of nominated movies. Yep. And then when you click in, you're like, wait, hold on, I didn't think that Carol won any Oscars, and Carol did not win any Oscars, but it was nominated for some. So only things that actually took home a trophy are eligible. We generally do not include documentaries, just because oftentimes that makes the pool so much bigger. However, I mean, these are movies that won Oscars. So, Joe, Chris, what were you thinking in terms of documentaries? I'm sure there are some, probably not so many that it would unbalance the list, but it's entirely up to the two of you.
I mean, there's one on my list that I would throw in there if you wanted. There's at least one. So, yeah.
I also have at least one.
Okay, I think this is Billy Ray just is like a pig in shit. He's always like, we need more The thing with documentaries, Billy Ray, is when you're on the show, if we don't have parameters like winning Oscars and it's more broad, and we say, documentaries, Billy Ray, you will come in with a list of 9 indie documentaries that no one's ever heard of.
You're goddamn right, I will.
And it'll just be a whole show of you showing off. So that's why we usually have this rule. But okay, we're including documentaries. Very exciting. We do not often do that. There's something called the Commissioner Override when we have really specific parameters like this evening. That's not going to come into play. And Ryan and I did not do predictions because he's not here. So we're not doing predictions. We're not doing that. But at the end of the night, we will talk to Joe and Chris about some discarded titles, some things they were considering playing that did not quite make the list. Joe, Chris, Billy Ray, any questions or things that you think I missed that need to be clarified for our viewing audience?
I think you got it.
I think you covered it all, Clay. I think you did a good job.
Oh, thank you, Billy Ray.
Someone just said that they miss Ryan, and I agree. I miss Ryan too. I can't live up to the Ryan marker mantle, but I try my best.
Billy Ray will try his damnedest, and we have the utmost confidence in you. And I'm sure that you will make Ryan proud. Okay, let's get into the game. Joe, Chris, the trivia is just a shout out. You don't need to buzz in or say your name or anything. But for the rest of the rules, Billy Ray, are you prepared to give the other 2 rules of trivia?
Oh, I'm prepared. Clay, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm prepared to step in. Me and Cogman are already prepared for the Clay and Ryan get hit by a bus rule. So
I have already told my family that if I get mysteriously murdered or I disappear or something, go and investigate Cogman and Billy Ray, because it's probably them trying to get me out of the way so they can take over screen drafts.
Yeah, you should maybe have like a letter in a sealed vault somewhere or whatever, just in case.
And to respond to Alicio on YouTube, my cheering section is with Ryan's cheering section. They've all gone to the water park for the day, so they're just having a fantastic time at the water park, eating their chicken feed, sliding down slides while we're here doing, the Lord's work. So, trivia, everybody.
It's trivia time, Billy Ray.
What are the rules, you say? Well, there are a couple of rules. There is the Lord Bullington rule, which is from, of course, Barry Lyndon, Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, which means that if, say, Chris answers the trivia question and he is wrong, he has to wait until Joe answers before he can give another answer. So we're just being all gentlemanly in this game. The other is the Alex Trebek rule, rest in peace, meaning that you have to wait until I finish the entire question before you can answer. If you fail to do so, you will be verbally shat on. And those are the punishments. Does everybody understand the rules?
Fully. Yes.
Okay, then let's dive in. This is going to be best out of 3. First person to 3 is the winner and gets to choose. Question number 1. In the 2018 film Green Book, A closeted gay man goes on tour with a bigoted Viggo Mortensen. In which Jerry Bruckheimer produced film does Mortensen co-star with James Gandolfini and Steve Zahn? I did this question for you, Clay.
I know what this is.
Do you?
We brought this up on an episode.
I'm drawing a full blank.
Gandolfini
Would a hint
and
be helpful?
Steve
Yes.
Zahn.
Okay, well, the hint would be the name of this film also shares something in common with the greatest college football team that ever lived.
That's not a hint.
Um,
Not for me.
I was gonna say like Crimson Tide.
That is correct. Joe
Oh!
has answered correctly with Crimson Tide. Roll Tide,
That's
everybody.
the greatest way to get a question right on a queer film draft I've ever taken.
I went
Joe
there. I
Reid
went
would
there.
get the sports hint over me.
Crimson
Joe now-
Tide. What a film Crimson Tide is. Billy
Right.
Ray, that trivia question was a long walk, but
We got there.
It paid off in the end.
Joe
yeah.
is up 1-0. Are we
Joe
ready
is
for
up.
the second question?
Yes.
What was Patty Jenkins' follow-up to her Oscar-winning film Monster?
Wonder Woman.
That's correct. It is
Wow,
Wonder
yeah.
Woman. She did not work for a very long time because Hollywood hates women. So we are now tied between Joe and Chris.
Ooh.
The next question. Which artist, a.k.a. the greatest artist in the history of mankind, won Best Original Song for his song from the Philadelphia soundtrack?
Bruce Springsteen.
Joe got it first.
I heard Joe slightly first as well. All right, we're doing best of three. That means Joe is the winner.
All right.
You did it.
You did
Thank
it,
you.
Joe.
You did it. Well, I've got one final question that I'm going to see if
Okay.
anybody would have gotten.
Oh, just for fun. Okay.
Who narrated the Oscar-winning doc, The Times of Harvey Milk?
Harvey Firestein.
Yeah,
That's correct.
That's
that
right.
would have been the last question had we needed it.
All right. Well, a hotly contested trivia round. Points to both of our GMs, but Joe pulled it out in the end. Joe,
Yes.
you get to decide if you would like to be drafter A and have more picks on the list, or drafter B and have the responsibility of the number one pick at the top of the list.
Yeah. I am going to go with fewer picks, but the number one.
Ooh, good choice.
Okay, Joe is going to be drafter B. So
He's going for Danish Girl all the way to the top spot. He is not going to stop until Eddie Redmayne gets the respect that he deserves.
He's gonna pull out like Green Book so that I can't veto the
Yeah,
Danish
right.
girl.
Let me just be
Right.
clear: if Green Book makes this list, I will never do another screen drafts again.
No.
Take that as you will.
Oh boy.
Joe and I are very strategic people. I would not put it past him to be like, you know what, I'm gonna say this, fully intending me to veto him, and
That-
maybe
yeah,
I'll
but
do
then-
the
But then
same.
I'm putting my reputation in your hands because you could just be like choke on it, and then that's there next to my name for all of eternity.
That is
That is true. When we put these on our letterbox page, it does just say who made each pick. I will say, drawing out vetoes is incredible. A perfectly proper strategy. That said, if you play something, you need to convince us that you genuinely believe it belongs on that spot. We try to avoid craven veto.
Right.
I don't know anyone who does that, so
yeah,
I think we're okay.
Certainly, nobody on this call has ever done that. Certainly. Okay. I think we're ready to go, unless anybody's
Let's do
got any other questions or concerns before we get into the
No,
game.
let's do it. 3 queers and a Clay. Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
3 queers and a Clay, just the way I like it. We are going to be taking an intermission in between picks 4 and 3. A couple minutes there to use the restroom or freshen our drinks or whatever people need to do. So everybody viewing, thank you for joining us live. Sit back, relax, and Chris, whenever you are ready, text me. That's right, because we don't have a private chat function on this platform. I put my phone number in the chat window. So go ahead and send me a text message Do you see it there?
I
Do you see the chat
don't
window?
yet.
In private
hold
chat,
on,
next to
It might
see
be
where
in
it
the
says private
email
chat.
thread.
Do that.
Yeah, I'm in there.
It's not
I don't
an
see
email
it.
thread. Right on our screen. Do you not see the private chat thing?
I'm in private chat. I don't have it.
It's
Chris,
not
I'll text
there.
it to you. Hold on.
Okay,
a second.
Joe.
Thank you, buddy.
Text Chris my phone number. Chris, when you get that, send me a text message with your pick. Billy Ray. Before we get into the number 7 pick,
Yes.
do you want to try and influence Joe and Chris at all?
Well, I mean, no, actually not really. I mean, I heard them both say they had a documentary that they were considering. I certainly have one that is near and dear to my heart that I hope is the one that they're considering, but we'll find out. Otherwise, I'm just really anxious to see what the hell they play, because I'm kind of I'm not clueless on this topic, but I don't know what I would play. I mean, I have no idea what I would play on this list. Most of the most popular films are films that I think are just kind of
Billy Ray, I hope each and every pick when I announce it, I would like you to give on a scale of like
Right.
to
On a scale
yes.
of angry to disappointed,
Right.
where
Not
are you
mad,
falling?
just
Give us a
Exactly.
really visceral
I
reaction
promise to give
each.
you my full, unfiltered, unvarnished reaction to every
Okay.
pick.
Well,
Get that varnish. No place for varnish here on this live Screen Draft Seattle Queer Film Festival Oscar-winning queer films draft. I have received Chris's pick at number 7. I am writing it down on my note card here. Okay. There we go. Kicking off the list at number 7. Billy Ray, I have a feeling you're not going to give us too disgusted of a reaction on this one, considering it was the topic of one of your trivia questions. At number 7, Chris has selected The Times of Harvey Milk.
And I swear it's not because I felt the pressure of making Billy Ray happy, and hopefully this does make him happy. And it's not just because of the trivia question, though. Harvey Fierstein is a great documentary narrator. This documentary is like probably easily categorized among like my least favorite type of documentary, which is like a talking head documentary where, you know, they're interviewing all of these people who either worked with or were very close with Harvey Milk. And, you know, they reflect on his tenure in San Francisco government. But something about the actual interviews that Epstein, and I apologize, I forget the other director's name. I believe that it's 2 directors.
It is, yeah.
There's something about the quality of testimonial that the interviews give in this that really touches on a lot of queer rage, experience with, you know, becoming involved, and you know, activated in politics. That is very not just moving, because there is that element, but there is also I guess when I watch it now, you know, you see this kind of sense of gratitude for like the history of people who have forwarded the movement. That like they're just very visceral interviews to me, especially the ones who are able to get angry on camera, that I think belongs on this list.
All right, an important story to tell about a great man. Yeah, the only credited director, I'm looking at IMDb here, is Robert Epstein. The narration was written by Judith Coburn and Carter Wilson. So they were also contributors there. Joe, at number 7, The Times of Harvey Milk, winner for Best Documentary, I assume.
It was, yes.
Yeah, winner for Best Documentary at the 1985 ceremony. How do you feel about this? Accredited, I guess, producing this movie with Rob Epstein is a man named Richard Schmeichen. want to make sure everybody gets credited. Apparently, I've decided.
No,
Let's just go through the whole credits, Clay.
Let's go through the whole credits. Yes, one best documentary at the 85 ceremony. How do you feel about this movie kicking off the list at number 7?
I love it. When the door was open to documentaries, this was the one that kind of popped into my head. It's one of those movies where you look back and it almost feels like this should be a movie where you're like, oh, if only the Oscars were on the ball enough to give this movie an Oscar. And then they did. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, they managed to nail this one. And it's a great sort of forebearer for a lot of the great documentaries that are being made today about the activism of that era, of Harvey Milk's era, but also of the AIDS era. I'm thinking of a documentary like How to Survive a Plague, and movies that owe a lot of debt to not only this film, but like Harvey Milk himself, obviously. And this is one of those movies where anybody who sees the Gus Van Sant movie Milk and talks about how much they like that, and I would not disagree, and yet I'm always just like, go see Times of Harvey Milk. Like, this is definitely like, it's much more than supplemental material, but it's just like, it feels like a more complete picture. Obviously, documentaries have that advantage of having, this archival footage of the man himself. It's just incredibly emotional when you get to the aftermath of his assassination and the way that people reacted to that. And Harvey Fierstein, it's not incidental to mention his involvement in this, because like that is a voice with a lot of gravitas, and that is a voice with a lot of investment in this story, and that's a voice that has seen history sort of roll by with him, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful movie.
All right, at number 7, The Times of Harvey Milk. Billy Ray, when we decided we were opening up documentaries to this list, you were very excited. Is this the doc you were hoping to see here in the top 7?
It is the doc I was hoping to see in the top 7. I love this film. I think we were thinking it was 2 filmmakers, because I know a lot of Rob Epstein stuff is with Jeffrey Friedman. And so, like, when Common Threads and Howl.
My mistake.
But this was just Rob. This was just Rob.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
My mistake.
No, my mistake too. And I adore this film. I think, I knew nothing about Harvey Milk before I saw this documentary. It was just one of those like complete lapses in sort of great history for me. And I think what works about this documentary is it is so simply told, and it's a very basic documentary, but it is that gravitas of like Harvey Fierstein's voice and just the subject matter that they're tackling. It makes it really powerful, and I think it holds up still remarkably well as a documentary. And so, yeah, I'm delighted this is on the list. Anytime a documentary makes it, an angel gets its wings.
All right. The first pick on the list at number 7, The Times of Harvey Milk. Not only did it not elicit a disgusted, guttural utterance from Billy Ray,
nope.
It gets the full stamp of approval. So there you go at number 7, The Times of Harvey Milk. Chris, you have the number 6 pick as well. So when you are ready with that, send it on over.
Alrighty. This is harder than picking the first one, so I'm gonna go with this.
Billy Ray, I noticed that you've added a little ticker to the bottom of the screen.
I for every pick I have a different ticker, so I'm doing it in real time, people. This is real time typing. Real time typing.
Here we go. I have the pick at number 6. As well. Here we go. So number 7 is The Times of Harvey Milk. At number 6, Chris has selected a film that won Best Original Score and Best Makeup, and was also nominated for Best Actress, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, and Best Original Song. This was at the 2003 ceremony. Chris has selected Salma Hayek and Julie Taymor's Frida.
Oh, that's a pick.
I mean, this might be a controversial pick too, but I picked it for a reason. First of all, it's great. Second of all, a lot of these like Oscar-y, prestige-y queer movies that are like centered around queer people. Frida Kahlo is famously bisexual, and the movie does not shirk around that in any way, I don't think. A lot of them suck, and Frida doesn't. There was of course issues with the production of the movie, there's I'm sure we might get into, probably will get into other heterosexual performers playing queer roles, but like Salma Hayek is amazing in this movie, and also just like biopics are so Oscar-y and they're usually so boring, and this one I think actually approaches Frida Kahlo's life in a really interesting way that reflects the artist, or at least really attempts to, in a way that a lot of boring biopics don't. Yeah, check out Frida. It's been on Criterion Channel off and on, but yeah, and I also kind of wanted to, aside from the biopic thing, Frida Kahlo is an important queer figure, so I wanted to put her in here too.
All right, at number 6, Frida. Joe,
Yeah.
you said, "Oh, that's a pick. That's a pick."
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
So I really, really, really didn't want to have to do this, but I'm going to have to admit to not having seen a movie that's picked on this draft. I still haven't seen Frida. I very, very much tried to cram for this draft, and I ran out of time. I should have seen it before now, but I just haven't. But the one thing, and obviously I will defer to everything that Chris said about this movie, because impeccable taste, sir. But what I love about Frida, even not having seen it, is the Oscar story of this movie. Like, Salma Hayek pounded the pavement to get this movie seen by people and seen by Academy members, and she really worked to get that nomination, not only for herself, but for, like, if, as you said, Clay, got a bunch of other nominations besides just Salma Hayek, and it won. What did we say? Score and makeup, right? So
yes, score and
yeah, and like that's all credit to Salma Hayek for that, and for the work that she put into it. Because like the Oscars is, we would all like to think that the Oscars is a pure meritocracy, but of course the Oscars is about 8 billion other factors, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. And in this case, the Oscars were about that year. One of the stories that year was that Salma Hayek, who had up to this point was a very popular actress, but was probably not seen among the echelons of like the great actresses of her moment, right? But she has this sort of once in a lifetime role that she really fought for, and she made this movie, and she made sure that people saw it, and all great credit to her. And I promise I'll see it very soon.
Well, Joe, I am in that same camp with you. I have yet to get around to Frida. I was a little bit young to be seeing R-rated prestige movies in the early 2000s.
Never too soon.
My dad took me to see that movie, and I'm just this little gay kid sitting there while she's, having some sex. Thanks, Dad.
So there are a chunk of movies, a lot like kind of prestige dramas from the late 90s, early 2000s that I've yet to get around to myself. So I have not yet seen Frida. Billy Ray. Frida, I know you love Salma Hayek. Who doesn't? How do you feel about Julie Taymor's film Frida?
I love Frida. I think Frida is a wonderful film. It was really kind of it wasn't my first experience with Salma Hayek. That probably was From Dusk Till Dawn. But it was the first time where I was like, holy shit, Salma Hayek's a fucking goddess. And I think you're right. I think it's an important film for the queer community. I think I don't think it gets the respect it deserves these days, frankly. I mean, I love Julie Taymor. I think Julie Taymor is kind of a genius. And even the stuff of hers that are a little messy to me are so worth watching, because her visual style is so like unique to her and so on point. This was unexpected for me. I would not have expected this, and I think it's a wonderful addition to the list. So,
I have a question for Joe and Chris. This is more of a "this had Oscar buzz" type of question. The film that Salma Hayek starred in directly before Frida. Oh no, this is a TV movie. Never mind. It's got real. Just looking at the poster and the description, it's got real Your Podcast vibes.
What is it?
It looks like it was. It's called In the Time of Butterflies.
Wow. That is a title.
Sounds like yeah.
With Salma Hayek and Edward James Olmos.
Oh,
It's set in the
wow.
60s. Very
It
interesting.
sounds like
Television.
something I would watch very first thing in the morning with my cup of coffee.
Well,
I
I'll
would
tell you
love
what,
that.
it's on Pluto TV right now, this says, and it's
All right.
it's inspired by the true story of the three Mirabelle sisters who, in 1960, were murdered for their part in an underground plot to overthrow the government.
Wow.
So there you go.
Jeez.
All right.
That sounds fascinating.
In the
Yeah, I was
Time
gonna
of
say,
Butterflies.
kinda sold. All right.
We got Mark Anthony in this movie, too. Okay. At number 6, Frida is on the list. So those are Chris's first 2 picks. That means we are over to Joe with his first pick on the show at number 5.
All right.
Joe,
Okay.
did either of Chris's picks make you have to rearrange your personal plan
Well,
for the draft?
The bottom of my personal list was real squishy, so I was glad to sort of let Chris clarify that for me a little bit.
Set
I
the
am-
tone.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm moving up my list a little bit. I'm kind of nervous about this one, but we'll see how it goes.
Billy Ray, how are things going over on the chat?
You know, the chat seems to be going just fine. The most recent were, let's see, what's the latest here? Someone's wife got really angry with the time that I played Cat's Eye on the Stephen King draft, and I think that's fair. I think a lot of people got angry about that. That's
I like
Joy
that people are
33.
using this live show as an opportunity to air 3-year-old grievances.
That's
about-
right. And I feel like my whole life now is just answering for grievances on screen drafts. Why did you do that?
Oh man. All right. I have received Joe's pick at number 5. Let me pull up some statistics about it here. Okay. Here we go. At number 7 and 6, Chris played The Times of Harvey Milk and Frida. At number 5, with his first pick on the show, Joe has selected a film that won Best Original Screenplay, but was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Best Director, and Best Film Editing at the 1993 Academy Awards ceremony. Joe has selected The Crying Game.
Yes. So The Crying Game. So many of these movies that I sort of had in contention had, I think in my notes for like half of them are just like complicated legacy. I'm like, yeah, a complicated legacy
Right.
for a film like The Crying Game. I think looking back in hindsight, there was a lot of not only just the movie itself, and you can talk about the movie itself because the movie itself also deals with characters who we didn't quite have the vocabulary and certainly the film history to sort of deal with everything that's going on in The Crying Game. So this is Neil Jordan's movie about an IRA soldier who, at the beginning of this movie, played by Stephen Ray, forms this kind of bond with a prisoner of his, played by Forrest Whitaker. And after that prisoner sort of meets his fate, feels this incredible degree of guilt over it, and Stephen Ray's character ends up tracking down this guy's girlfriend. His name is Dill, who is this lounge singer in a bar. And their relationship, like obviously everything about the movie was this like advertising campaign from Miramax, which like, and all that entails, which sold this movie on like, you got to see it. Don't let anybody tell you about the secret. And it's about, this big reveal that happens in the movie. And of course, the reveal that happens in the movie is that Dill, who presents as a woman, is now there have been interviews like recently where like Neil Jordan and Jay Davidson, who plays Dill, sort of clarified that as they were making the movie, Dill was a gay man performing in drag at a bar, that they very specifically were like, this was not a transgender character. And yet obviously you cannot help but read a trans narrative onto this movie, of course. And like, but the treating that moment as this kind of gotcha in the marketing of this movie makes it really problematic, as does things like you go back and you watch like the Academy Awards that year, where like Billy Crystal makes 8 bajillion crying game jokes, and it's just like, this is ugly and gross. And then you really want to try and separate that from this movie that I feel like, and I watched it again the other day just to make sure, but this is a movie that treats its characters with a great deal of respect and tells this story as this incredibly unlikely love story of these, two characters who meet amid, these personal circumstances that bring them together. And there are just some really great, fantastic things about the movie. I love the way that like the bar is depicted. Jim Broadbent plays the bartender, this really sort of like kind of cheeky bartender who speaks in these very kind of like, he's always repeating what the other person says to each other and sort of is the go-between communicator between the two of them. And it's a movie that surprises you, and not in the ways that Miramax marketing wants you to be like, this is the big surprise. There's tones in this movie and stories, the story that it tells that, is not exactly what you think you're getting from the beginning of the movie. And I think it holds up. I think it's one of those things that you have to take a lot of perspective to it and a lot of context to it. And if some people are not interested in that, like, that's cool too. But like, I think you go back into like the early 90s and like for its time, it's telling a pretty daring story that I think it executes really well.
Yeah, I hope that the people, I mean, obviously this is a film that even, I was aware of far too young to see it and not really following movies that much as a little kid. I mean, this thing pervaded the culture so much because of this sort of craven way that they advertised it. Like that I hope that some of the people who went and saw it because they were fooled by the advertising got something good out of it there in the end. All right. Number 5, The Crying Game. Chris, is this one that you were considering for this list?
I mean, I have it on a very long list for all of the reasons that Joe said. Plus, I think, the political nature of the movie, everything that he describes, also kind of is reflected in the politics of it too. So it makes it this really complicated, morass of.
It was far more controversial in Britain and Ireland for its politics than it was for the sexuality involved. Like, that was the interesting thing about that moment. Yeah,
it is a great movie. I think it's a fun pick. Strategically, though, I think we can get some better movies. Like, I think The Crying Game is a really good movie. People should watch it for all the reasons Joe says. But because I'm going to play the strategy to get the movies that I want on the list, I'm going to veto it.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Chris using his veto. Billy Ray, put like a banner up on the bottom. Those banners on the bottom. It says like veto and a bunch of exclamation points.
You got it.
All right. What am I going to do here? Okay.
That's how.
It's a
quick
great
happens.
pick, buddy. But I'm trying to get what I want on the list in the list.
As I said to you before we did this, like any and all vetoes are fair game. I am going to have to play it a little bit conservative, just to make sure that nothing of mine gets squeezed out.
So yeah, Joe, you've been vetoed at The Crying Game. Now, as I said up top, that doesn't mean that The Crying Game is now eliminated from the game. It just means that it cannot be played here at number 5.
I do have the number 1, Chris.
So we will see if The Crying Game could possibly advance. It could happen because, yes, now that Chris has used his veto, everything else that Joe plays
powerless
will remain as it's played on the list, unless self-vetoing is also an option. So maybe Chris will be able to talk Joe into self-vetoing if
you
need
really
be.
don't want to put the Danish girl at number 1.
Okay.
Any opportunity to dunk on that terrible movie.
It's true.
Here we go. Billy Ray, I'm loving this ticker that goes... Use the ticker as much as you possibly can to update the picks and to say vetoes. Just go hog wild on that
I
ticker.
will. I absolutely will.
Okay. I have received Joe's replacement at number 5. Let me pull up the statistics here. Okay. This film, another screenplay winner, this one for Best Adapted Screenplay. It was also nominated for Lead Actor, Motion Picture, Best and Best Song were the other nominees for this movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And I want to take a second to shout out our friend and past guest GM, Dane McDonald, who every time this film is eligible in a topic and does not make the list, sends me a series of text messages accusing me of all manner of unkind things. So I'm sure he will be delighted that this film is finally on a Screen Drafts list. It won that Best Adapted Screenplay award at the 2018 ceremony, of course, to the iconic Mr. James Ivory. This film is Call Me by Your Name.
It is, yeah. I had my eye on playing this one a little bit higher, but like I said, I wanted to make sure that, it got on there in some place, and I wanted to play it. My favorite movie of that year, it's what Luca Guadagnino does with the sort of romanticism and coming of age in that movie. I really, really love the Italianness of that movie. I really like the way he brings that out in different the sort of like the odd way he'll like pepper in politics. Even the fact that it's set in the 80s, I think, matters. The fact that it is sort of very much of its moment. Obviously, can't look back at any movie that you loved anymore without being totally uncomplicated. So of course you look at this and like, I'm not going to talk about Armie Hammer very much. You know what? I'm just not. I'm going to talk about Timothée Chalamet delivering one of the great sort of like go from like zero to like everybody knows who you are performances. I just, every time I've seen this movie, and I've seen it plenty of times, he's equally impressive. The fact that he can play the sort of the teenness of that character and the way that he is kind of a brat at times, but also the way that this kind of moment of first love kind of ends up hitting him like a ton of bricks is really wonderful. The scene after he leaves, or he's still at the train station after Armie Hammer's character is left on the train and he calls his mom. It's so heartbreaking. Everybody sort of talks about the scene of the end credits where he's, holding that camera and kind of breaking down, which is great. And obviously, we all want that shirt. Half of my friends went out and bought that shirt. And honestly, it's a good call. But the scene where he calls his mom and just has her come and get him. And then obviously the scene with him and Michael Stuhlbarg is just, that's like, that for as much as this is like two characters in a love story, like Stuhlbarg rules, Amira Kassar as the mother who like smokes as good as anybody has smoked on camera in the last however many years is fantastic. Yep. It's a movie I can watch again and again and again, and I really love it.
All right, at number 5, at long last, Call Me by Your Name on a Screen Drafts list. Yeah, a beautiful movie, one of my favorites of that year as well. And particularly as somebody who is not well versed in the genre of queer film, it was very interesting and exciting for me to see this movie where it creates, as you were saying, Joe, this space where these two men can kind of flirt and romance each other and kind of fall in love, and it's not about like misery and trauma, and it is kind of this magical place here in the Italian countryside where they are able to court each other in an organic way, which I thought was really a lovely thing to see in a movie, and interesting that something I had never seen before as somebody who is not explored deeper into the genre, just kind of seen what's been put in front of me by Hollywood. Chris, you vetoed The Crying Game. It was replaced by Call Me by Your Name. Are you pleased by the way this worked out?
It was not one of the things I was trying to incept Joe into picking. I figured Joe would probably put it in there. I guess I'm fine with it at this place, but yes, all of the things Joe said, absolutely true about that movie. Myself, as a revisionist historian, celebrate that movie as Michael Stuhlbarg's Oscar. It's yes, all of the things that he said are absolutely wonderful about that movie, are truly wonderful. Yeah.
All right, not necessarily on Chris's list, but is respects the pick there at number 5. Call Me by Your Name. Billy Ray, I don't think we've had a disgusted reaction from you yet.
No, this is a great pick. This would have been on my list for everything that was just conveyed by Joe and Chris. I think, I mean, this was the film that sort of turned Timothée Chalamet into Willy Wonka.
Oh boy,
he is now, and and there was something really endearing about the whole friendship between Timothée Chalamet and Armie Hammer until we discovered that Armie Hammer was a cannibal, and so then it became a little less cute and more like, oh, like I hate it when films that I love get sullied even a little bit by assholes who just decide to show the world that they're assholes. But
it's like now you watch the movie and at the end it's like, don't be sad. You're fine.
A bullet.
You escaped. You really did. And I mean, my favorite scene. I mean, I'm a sucker for like really interesting ways of like showing coming out stories in film, and the way they do it with Michael Stuhlbarg and Timothée Chalamet in that scene is really beautiful. And Michael Stuhlbarg is just, to me, one of the most underrated actors working in general. I think he's so incredible. And I love this film. This would have, if I were drafting, which I'm not, it would have probably been higher on my list. But I love it. I love that it's on here. And we had to say goodbye to the Crying Game to make it happen. But we can all just go take a cold shower and forget about it.
And we have an intermission coming up soon, and we can do just that. Yeah, so again, congratulations to Dane. Call Me by Your Name, finally on the show. James Ivory's only Oscar. Truly astounding stuff there, but a deserving one, certainly. Okay, we've got one more pick before we take a brief intermission. We are back over to Chris for the pick at number 4. Okay, here we go. I've got it. Let me punch it in. Get these stats.
Punch it in? Is that some sort of a reference? Did he play Rocky?
Hey, hold on. We said no queer coding, and I know that Polly is obviously a gay character, but come on.
Yeah. I mean, for sure.
He was the Philly Grand Marshal of 1978. Could you imagine?
That's right.
Okay, here we go. I've got Chris's pick at number 4. It was nominated for 1 Oscar. It won that Oscar. It was the winner for Best Foreign Language Film at the 2000 ceremony, the Academy Awards. This will be a Marquee of Fame entrant, as it was previously played on the Pedro Almodovar draft. At number 4, Chris has selected All About My Mother.
I mean, if Todd Haynes is my favorite filmmaker, Pedro's my second. And to some people, this is his greatest movie. All About My Mother, it has a lot of queer sensibility. Also has a trans character in A Grotto, a great performance by Antonio San Juan. In addition to other characters in the film, that for people who still haven't seen this movie 20 years later, please absolutely leave the second this podcast and go watch the movie. Things I wouldn't further spoil. And Pedro Almodovar is, one of our greatest living queer filmmakers. Really hoping that he makes a run for it again this year. Obviously not in the international feature category because Spain did not select it. But All About My Mother is not just... It is, in many ways, who he is saying he is as a queer cinema lover, a queer filmmaker. It's very referential to a lot of, queer coded texts like Streetcar Named Desire, All About Eve. And it's an incredibly emotional movie as well when you rewatch it. like Cecilia Roth at the lead is like one of the great underrated performances of my lifetime. I feel like all I can do is gush about this movie, but I mean, Pedro is one of the greatest living, and I wanted to make sure that this movie got in.
One of the greatest living, absolutely, undeniably, at number 4, All About My Mother. Chris, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and I'm only bringing this up because you said you could just gush about this movie. We did an Australian films episode maybe about a month ago and had on Blake Howard and Alexi Toliopoulos, and they made me aware of, I guess, a common Australian saying, which is they were talking about gushing about a movie. And one of them said, let me heap my gush upon a title. He's like, I'm going to heap my gush on this movie, and I was just absolutely floored. There's something about the phrase "heap my gush" that is both terrifying and alluring to me.
I will be using it from here on out, maybe only to talk about Pedro's movies.
Perhaps.
It's also like, if we're doing Oscar ones too, this is like a notorious Oscar moment too, because when the category was presented, it was presented by Penelope Cruz, who's also in the movie, which it's always weird to me when, you know, stars of the movies are presenting for their own categories.
Yeah.
It's wild to me. And Antonio Banderas. Those are two very quintessential Almodovar stars. So it's like, it's this huge emotional moment that he, after, you know, decades in cinema, is winning this, and, you know, they pull out the ballot and she says the Oscar goes to, and she goes, Pedro! And it's, you know, it's Oscar legend.
It's
How can I not include this?
Oscar moments.
Probably my top 3 favorite Oscar moments.
Yeah.
Joe, do you have any gush you would like to heap upon Almodovar's All About My Mother?
I do. So I sort of, I think I kind of forgot protocol here. I think it should be higher, and I'm going to veto it.
Whoa!
Wow.
Okay. I will accept that veto if
Yes,
you're gonna have to.
Wow.
Okay.
You do whatever you want at number 4. I think this should be higher, and I'm going to veto it. Yeah.
All right.
I respect that. Because I might have put it higher, but I was just trying to get it in there.
Joe thinks Pedro belongs higher up on the list, has vetoed All About My Mother at number 4 with the intention of advancing it up the list. Okay, so both Chris and Joe have used their vetoes very dramatically here in the first half of the show. We'll see if either of those titles end up coming back on the list. But now, Chris, not only do I need a pick from you at number 4, but what we're looking at for the rest of the game is that everything that is played from here on out will be locked in. All right.
I'm also trying to engineer what is at the top.
I know.
Yeah, Chris is really trying. Chris, had you won trivia, did you also want the responsibility of the top spot?
No. I was gonna try to do what I was doing in our Best Actress films that I succeeded at last time.
You did, yes.
Entirely engineering the list that I wanted as I wanted it, and it is not happening for me this time, but it's okay.
All right. So All About My Mother vetoed at number 4. We'll see if that pops up again higher up on the list. But right now, it has been replaced at that spot by a film that won Best Actress. It won Best Actor in a Supporting Role. It won Best Director. It won Best Cinematography. It won Best Art Direction. It won Best Sound. It won Best Film Editing. And it won Best Original Song Score and or Adaptation, was additionally nominated for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. At the 1973 ceremony, this pick is Bob Fosse's Cabaret.
I mean, I was trying to get this higher, but I mean, especially when we're talking about previous decades of like, especially mainstream enough for Oscar queer cinema. I think there are few moments as formative for a lot of people as that moment of screw Maximilian, I do, so do I. And then, of course, the whole like dance scene where it's like just the faces. I'm not gonna get close to the camera, I promise you. And of course, we got to get a musical in here.
Yeah, no, that's smart. That's very smart.
But yeah, and the way this is one where I think it is explicitly queer, but then there's other queer coded things here too. This is one of the times that I'm like, queer coding makes sense to put on this list, especially with like Joel Grey's performance. I mean, what the fuck can I say about Cabaret that hasn't been said? It should be higher on this list. It's just iconic cinema. Liza, gay icon, but I also wanted it on this list specifically because of the screw Maximilian part. Like it all kind of goes from there, the like bisexuality of it throughout the movie, but like that's just such a seismic moment for
in 1972. It's like, yeah.
Absolutely. Whoa, what happened there, Billy Ray? That was exciting.
I don't know. That was a weird button thing. Pretend it didn't happen.
What I realized is
like
learning how to use this software.
Yeah, no, look, what we learned is that we can show a quote from someone online. I can show you that Joy 33.
Joy, I agree with that veto. That was not cool. Joy's right.
Listen.
Wow, Billy Ray can pluck out comments and show them on the screen. This is a whole new world. This is incredible. Joy is now just pitching Joe and Chris ideas for their podcast.
That's right.
That'll be next summer. Who knows what it's going to be?
Yeah,
who knows?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. At number 4, Joe, you vetoed All About My Mother. And Chris played, going all the way back into the 70s, of course, Liza Minnelli and Cabaret. How do you feel about this placement for this film?
I mean, I love it. It's one of the great movies of all time. Its placement in Oscar history, I always find to be very interesting. Obviously, it won Best Director for Bob Fosse, who beat out Francis Ford Coppola for The Godfather. Now, The Godfather is one of those, like, name 3 movies in all of the history of cinema, right? Anybody's going to tell you, Casablanca and Citizen Kane and The Godfather, right? So growing up, I had seen The Godfather when I was in high school. And so as somebody who sort of like followed the Oscars and I'd seen the Godfather movies, I was like, what the hell's this movie that beat Francis Ford Coppola for, Best Director of the movie? So I didn't see Cabaret until I was in college, or maybe even like slightly after college. And then I saw Cabaret and it was like, literally just like scales fell from my eyes and whatever. It's just like, this is amazing. This is so good. This is so much more fantastic than I ever could have expected. And, it's a crowd pleaser, but also it obviously has these like really incredibly like layered themes when it comes to the time that it existed in, and also gender stuff and politics, and anchored by this really fantastic performance by Liza Minnelli, but also like Joel Grey and Michael York like doing some really great. I mean, York with specifically like character work, and like Joel Grey is just doing some shit that people weren't doing back then, and like that's rad. Like that the whole movie is just so, and the songs are so good. He's
basically human LSD but evil.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of the great movies. I love it. I have no I promise you, Chris, I only intended good with my veto, so I'm glad that this movie got played.
I'm even slightly a little okay with it being at number 4 and not higher, because the stuff that changes from the stage show, people are gonna yell at me for this, it's fine, but like the Maria Schneider stuff in the movie, it kind of, no one talks about that stuff because it's not great. The stuff in the stage show is better.
Yes.
All right, Cabaret there at number 4. Billy Ray, take us into the intermission with that pick of Cabaret. Not too shabby.
No, this would have been my number 2 pick on my list in my general. I adore Cabaret. It's one of my all-time favorite musicals. I'm also just a massive Liza Minnelli fan. I listen to Liza with a Z almost daily because if you don't, you're failing, essentially, with life. And yeah, I think this is a wonderful film. I think Bob Fosse was one of the best to ever do it, and you can apply "do it" to pretty much anything he ever did because he was the best at pretty much everything he did. And so, yeah, I'm delighted to see this on the list. I feel like somewhere Ryan Marker just had a shiver down his spine, which meant that Cabaret made it on the list. So I'm glad that we could provide that to Ryan as well.
I believe I want to say that Ryan has performed in a stage production of Cabaret at some point.
Fantastic.
He'd make
I
a great
love
Sally
that.
Bowles.
Yeah, well, yes, of course. Well, of course, he said.
Drop the photo, Ryan Marker.
Ryan.
Right.
And then, if I'm wrong, if I'm telling tales out of school, I will make him dress up as a character from Cabaret, and we'll stage a photo and pretend.
He's gonna be a great Fräulein Schneider.
Oh, he's going to revolutionize it.
This is the thing when Ryan's not here, it is just open season on volunteering him for things, and I like publicly declare that I'm going to make him like perform songs. And
I was going to
stuff.
say
Like,
you're just commissioning songs left and right.
He's not here to defend himself. All right, that is going to take us into the intermission. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Billy Ray, why don't you put the list thus far?
I will, but first I wanted to put up this list from Karen, who says Ryan is also worrying about what is not going to make it on the list. And yes, that is very correct. And
that is true, Karen.
And look what's coming up now.
Ooh, look, I love a ticker.
Ooh.
I love a ticker.
Oh,
okay.
Breaking news. Gay people make decisions.
Yes.
We're going to take a quick intermission, and we'll be back. In the chat, everybody, tell us how you feel the draft is going. Hit us with some comments and concerns. Billy Ray will pick out a couple that he likes, and we will, when we come back, we'll take a look at those up on the screen. But right now, this is the list thus far. Number 7, The Times of Harvey Milk. Number 6, Frida. Number 5, Call Me By Your Name. And number 4, Cabaret. There's a couple of vetoed movies that might reappear on the list, and of course, all of the vetoes have been used. So these final 3 picks the tension is going to be thick, and it's going to be very exciting when we come back. So we'll see everybody in 5 minutes. Okay, and we are all back. Oh, and we're playing musical squares here. Okay, there we go. This is what it looked like before. And we are back from the intermission. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being with us here for this live show for Seattle Queer Film Festival. And, of course, we've got with us Joe Reid and Chris Feil from This Had Oscar Buzz. I love doing this like it's we're on like television and someone just tuned in. But, hey, maybe some people are just tuning in. Billy Ray. I said before the intermission that when we came back, you were going to pick out some choice comments.
I sure am.
For us.
So we'll start here with Alicia Martinez. Just a general great pick so far.
Great pick so far.
Also,
Joe and Chris are doing great.
Also, Alicia wants to say that crossing their fingers for Moonlight, Brokeback, and The Hours.
Okay.
Somebody
is clearly familiar with our two guest GMs.
Another call out for me asking if I vetoed Beginners on the Plumber draft, which I don't feel like I did.
I thought that made the list. Didn't
I think it made the list. But then my favorite comment so far is from Bumpy Jonas, which is why did Clay betray his hometown twins?
Look, for a decade plus now, I have been resistant to joining the dark side and cheering for a Los Angeles team. But I decided this year, I went to a game at beautiful Dodger Stadium. I was surrounded by fellow Angelinos. I had some kind of a blue alcoholic drink, and I was feeling it. I bought a hat, and as I was telling these guys before we started the show, I'm a little Dodgers boy now. So that's the thing. I mean, I guess I'm also a twin at heart, but for the time being, I'm a little Dodgers boy. So apologies to Bumpy and everybody up in the great state of Minnesota. Yeah, that's just how it is. I'm just living my truth. Okay. Those are the comments. Thank you, Billy Ray, for pulling this out. Thank you, everybody, for commenting and following along. Billy Ray, before we get into the top three picks.
Yes.
So far, so good is the vibe I'm getting from you.
Yeah, so far, so good. I think the list is going pretty damn well. I mean, I've got one of my favorite docs is on here, a couple other films that I adore, and then Frida, which I love but haven't seen in so long. I need to watch it again. I'm sure I'm going to love it even more. I think it's a great list so far. Very pleased.
Great list so far. And you know what time it is now, Billy Ray?
Is it plug-in time?
Time to do a little plug-in. Billy Ray, you gotta kind of sing song.
Time
for a little plug-in.
Plug in. Plug it in.
Plug
it in.
Plug it in. As I've said, Joe and Chris host the This Had Oscar Buzz podcast. Guys, tell everybody if they're watching this and are seeing you guys for the first time, tell them about your show.
Chris, you have the better
cool. This is kind of how our show is. It's usually Joe and I being like, "Well, you,"
deferring to each other for
you tell it. Guys, we're the hosts of the This Had Oscar Buzz podcast. Like we mentioned a little bit before, we are all about Oscar ephemera. We center our episodes around movies that were positioned, buzzed, predicted, promoted for Oscar but got 0 nominations. So it's kind of a throwback down memory lane for Oscar nerds. We do a lot of Oscar ephemera about the individual year of the movies, the careers of the stars or directors that we're talking about. Like the past week, we just did an episode on To Die For, so we were talking about the career of Nicole Kidman. Was this our 6-timers club for Nicole, Joe?
It was our 6th.
So whenever somebody hits 6 episodes that we've done, we do a little quiz about the past episodes we did for them.
Play games, we have fun.
We love doing games, but we also talked about Gus Van Sant that episode. We talked about Joaquin Phoenix, River Phoenix. We have a good time. We do a lot of Oscar trivia, movie trivia.
Douglas. Yeah.
Queen Ileana Douglas, people. yeah, we have a great time. You can catch us on all the podcast apps, but we're also on Twitter at @_Oscar_Buzz. We like to tease out our episodes psychotically.
By
for
we, you
what
mean
we do.
you. This is,
I handle the teasing.
yeah.
And next
I like
week we'll
to
be
say-
doing. What was that?
Yeah, I was gonna say I like to say if you have any kind of opinion at all about the shipping news or ever did, like that's where the podcast.
We're the show for you. Yeah.
The the show that has the distinction of being the only podcast to ever discuss the shipping news.
An unfinished life.
Life.
Captain Corelli's mandolin, like we've got you covered.
Salma Hayek, Colin Farrell vehicle, Ask of the Dust. White Oleander, movies like that. We've also done maybe some things you're more familiar with, like Cats, Widows. We have a good time. Come join us.
Yeah,
have a good time. It's an excellent show. Check out This Had Oscar Buzz. And if you're enjoying Joe and Chris on this show, as I said, they've done 2 previous episodes. If you go into the Screen Drafts archives there on any podcast app, the drag films and the 21st Century Best Actress winning films drafts both featured Joe and Chris. We love having them on. Billy Ray.
Clay.
It's time to plug. I'm sure you would like to tell people about what's going on right now, currently, as we speak, at the Seattle Queer Film Festival.
Yes, we are day 3 of Seattle Queer Film Festival, day 3 of 11, so we have a long ways to go. We're having an amazing time. We're screening every day for the next, 9 days here in Seattle, but you can also access all of our films virtually, which is pretty amazing. But only, unfortunately, if you live in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. These events, however, which we're super excited about, are available to anybody anywhere. So that kind of helps us sort of get the word out there about us outside of the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, we've got some amazing stuff coming up. A film that I'm an associate producer on called Socks on Fire is part of that, which is an incredible documentary, won Best Documentary at Tribeca and some other fun places. And go to $3billcinema.org. Check out what we do. If you want to support us, that's also awesome. You can do that in the ticker at the bottom, or you can go to the website. And we're just having a blast right now, and we're super excited. Screen Drafts is a part of it as I drink my whiskey.
We are excited to be a part of it, Billy Ray. Thank you so much for inviting us to do this. Having a great time, and it's only gonna get better from
Clay,
here. Yeah.
Can I ask you, is it all because of the ticker?
It's 97%.
It's a big part of it. It's a big part of it.
I feel like it was.
The ticker is really going to revolutionize this show. A pop-in comment. U.S. Marshals had Oscar buzz, right? Did U.S. Marshals have Oscar? Did people think that Tommy Lee Jones
is going to win it again?
He's going to win it again for Sam Gerard?
When was U.S. Marshals released, though?
A while
Marshals-
after.
No, I mean like in the calendar year, because if it was like a February release, I would say no.
I like this one particularly. When are Clay and Billy Ray going to guest on Oscar Buzz? Hint, hint. I like the way that they're thinking.
It's not a bad thought. I'm saying, start thinking about what movies you guys would want to talk about. I'm just saying, come back to us.
Clay, decide what we're going to talk about.
Intriguing. U.S. Marshals came out in early March of 1998, so not really
Probably
an
a no.
Oscar position.
Not great award season.
Yeah, the studio definitely, because that's like a big studio movie. The studio probably didn't have that in mind. But I mean, like the Fugitive wasn't originally that, but the Fugitive also was a massive, huge critical and box office success, so it became that.
Indeed.
Ah, gotcha. Bumpy Jonas, yeah, clearly, familiar with the legend of Billy Ray Bruton on the Screen Drafts podcast. Big ticking. Billy Ray, the next time we do the show and you're not going to have access to that ticker, it's just going to kill you inside.
It really kind of is, because I'm kind of adoring playing with the ticker.
Well, Joe, I will start thinking about a film I would love to talk about on your show. I'm going to start that research immediately.
You should.
There would be no greater honor for me than that. I do love listening to your guys' show. Okay, one final plug before we go. Screen Drafts. We are in the midst of Scream, drafts over on the main feed. We're doing all horror-tinged things this month. Billy Ray and Kyle Anderson just had their Dimension Films draft. That's fresh in the feed now. We've got Hallie Kiefer and Graham Skipper doing a Mad Scientist Films draft dropping on Monday. And then to close out the month, an epic topic, we're doing a zombie mini mega draft, 13 slots on that one of the history of the zombie genre, and we're going to have Clark Collis, Clark Wolf, and our buddy Darren Franich on that one. So check that out. That's what's happening in October on the main feed. You can
and
find
if
that
folks
wherever
out
podcasts
there,
are.
if folks
Yes,
have
Billy
never
Ray.
met my husband, Darren Franich, then this will be a great time for them to get to know Darren.
Get to know Billy Ray's podcast husband, our good buddy, Mr. Darren Franich. Okay, those are the plugs. We've got 3 picks left in this draft, and there are no vetoes on the board. And there are 2 films that have been vetoed and are kind of lingering, looming. Will they come back? Will they not come back? The stakes have never been higher. The tension is ratcheted as high as it can possibly go. There are 3 picks remaining. 2 belong to Joe. The number 3 and the number 1 belong to Joe. That's what he wanted when he won trivia. Chris has 1 pick remaining at number 2. And of course, Chris is in the midst of his grand scheme to try and direct Joe to do what he wants him to do. Chris, how well would you say your incepting has gone thus far?
Listen, our best actress movies draft, I got exactly what I wanted.
Sure.
So it did work then. Today, I don't know. I need to reassess how that strategy happened. It's not happening today, but it's
Not
fine.
happening so far.
Spoiler, but I'm about to play a movie that you selected, so I think you're doing pretty well with the incepting.
Well,
so
let's go.
Let's go. Joe, when you're ready with that pick, text it on over to me. Everybody on the boards, keep commenting. I know Billy Ray is having a lot of fun over there plucking out comments. Yeah, if Moonlight isn't on the list, Joy might riot. Okay, well, we don't want to incite a riot, but we are in the safety of our own homes, separated by many thousands of miles.
we'll use the ticker to calm it down. Like the ticker knows all. The ticker will handle it.
The ticker will handle it.
I love that the ticker is dangerously close to be turning into some sort of like autonomous like character on the Screen Draft podcast.
I want, for those who've ever watched the Screen Drafts live at Chattanooga Film Festival, I want the ticker to be the Bubs of this.
The ticker is the new Bubs.
Is the
He's
new
going to
Bubs.
gain sentience and try to take the show over. Okay,
Right.
I have received Joe's pick at number 3. He teased it. It's one that has been vetoed, and I already read the stats on it. Returning to the list, 1 slot higher than it was originally played. Here, jumping from number 4 to number 3, Joe has selected Pedro Almodovar's All About My Mother.
So, is this a lot of fuss to get a movie from number 4 to number 3? Perhaps. This is a queer Oscar films draft, so I thought maybe a little drama was in order. I picked Call Me By Your Name in a little bit of a panic, I'm just going to say, and I didn't quite know how to get things back on track. This gets things back on track. You know what? It's fine. Luckily, it's maybe Pedro Almodovar's best movie. Like, that's definitely in the conversation. I mean, we mentioned before the great moment where Penelope Cruz and Antonio Banderas screamed his name out to the national television audience, which was fantastic when he won for best foreign language film. And I watched it again today. It's so good. The tones in it go from melodrama to comedy to these sort of like really like beautiful sort of personal moments. I love a movie about a sort of slapdash family structure that like sort of gets thrown together and behaves as a surrogate family. Any movie where like Penelope Cruz's performance is maybe like the 6th or 7th thing you even think to talk about the movie, like that's a movie that's really good. Like she's great in it, but it's just like Cecilia Cruz is so like
Cecilia Roth.
What did I say? Cecilia Cruz.
Cecilia Cruz is different.
Different thing, different performance. No. Cecilia Roth, like if a more daring Academy would have nominated her for best actress that year, she was really fantastic. It's a movie that also it's just like what a great it's a great influences movie. Obviously, it wears its influences for All About Eve and A Streetcar Named Desire on its sleeve and in its narrative. It's a wonderful movie. If you have not seen it, the highest of recommendations.
It's a movie too that if you have never seen a Pedro Almodovar movie before, it plays incredibly well for you, and if you have and you are familiar with him, his influences, and his work, it plays like through the stratosphere too. It's special.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, a special film here at number 3. Pedro Almodovar's All About My Mother, joining the Screen Drafts Marquee of Fame. That means that it has been played on the show before. This is its second appearance, played all the way back, as I said, on the Pedro draft we did, drafted by Alonso Duralde at number 2.
Hey, very good. I love Alonso.
The Pedro Almodovar draft. I've said it. I think I pronounced his name at least 3 different ways in the last 90 seconds. I'm sure at least one of them was correct. Billy Ray.
Yes.
All About My Mother got vetoed. It came back here a spot higher. What do you think?
I think this is a great spot for it. I'm glad you actually vetoed it to get it up a little bit higher. It's hard to say that this is my favorite Almodovar film, but it's certainly in the conversation for favorite Almodovar film. I think, yeah, it's kind of just a perfect movie. And, Penelope Cruz, it's a masterpiece. And I'm glad it's on here. It's around the area that I think it should be, which is always nice. And if folks aren't familiar with Almodovar's works, but hopefully everybody who's watching this is, if you're not familiar, please tell us in the comments and we will judge you harshly.
No, we will give you recommendations.
Yes, no, exactly. Yes, we'll give you recommendations. That's it. Just a great spot for it. I'm sure Ryan is also somewhere right now tickled pink.
I like the idea, Billy Ray, that that Ryan at the Aero Theater, overseeing some screening with celebrity guests is being controlled externally like some David Cronenberg movie by things, and he doesn't understand what's happening. He's feeling these shivers in his spine.
Yeah.
He's in the middle of a conversation.
I would watch the hell out of that Cronenberg movie. A Ryan Marker Cronenberg movie. Sensational.
That's what it would be called. It'd be called Sensational.
It would be called Sensational.
It would be like Marker's Mark.
Well,
he has like this thing that appears on his arm and he can't figure out what it is. It glows every time.
And it's slowly growing out another Ryan Marker.
That's right. 2 Ryans.
Entirely controlled by picks that are or are not made on screen drafts. There we go. Okay. Look, what I'm saying is someone needs to make a movie, like a narrative horror film, body horror film about our podcast. Okay. There are 2 picks remaining. The number 2 and the number 1. Chris, we are back over to you with your final pick in the game at number 2. People in the comments they have a lot of opinions on what needs to make this list. There's only 2 spots left. Yes, of course. Major Oscar-winning film.
Oh, well.
No mention yet.
Probably runner-up to Best Picture.
Honestly, it probably did finish second that year.
If it wasn't second, it was third.
Our friend Joanna Robinson is getting shout-outs in the comments.
She sure is.
Even though
Joanna's
she's not here,
Joanna,
we haven't mentioned her.
Joanna, come in and defend yourself or yell at us. Something.
Yes, please, Joanna. Start chat. Just start.
Joanna's now going to get a sensation, and all of a sudden she's going to. We got to show up somewhere.
Oh,
she's the female lead of Sensational.
Absolutely.
Above the title, Ryan Marker, Joanna Robinson. Sensational.
This movie's really
filmed by David Cronenberg.
Okay. Here we go. Let me pull up. I've received Chris's pick. Allow me a second to pull up the statistics here. Okay. Oh, it's current. This movie's currently playing for free on IMDb TV. If that's a clue for
That's
anybody.
if nothing else sounds like the Danish Girl. That's it.
I'm very, very curious where the inappropriately timed ads on IMDb happen in this movie. Can I just say, to break, the topic here a little bit, I watched Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer on IMDb TV for the first time, and I've never seen more inappropriately placed commercial breaks because it was like upbeat commercial about life insurance during these horrible scenes.
And then Henry strangles an entire family, and then
like mid-strangle.
Then it's
Chris,
Tom
I feel like
Selleck.
if any movie is really going to hit home the unpredictability of life and the importance of having life insurance,
Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer.
So
might be that one.
please tell me that right after Henry strangles somebody, it cuts to Tom Selleck by an oak tree, and he's like, "If you're old and you want to make some money, I'm here to tell you this is a legit company."
It plays an Activia ad like 3 times.
I love that commercial.
This is not a scam. I
It's
promise
the
you, it's not a
wildest commercial.
scam. I'm from Blue Bloods. Why would it be a scam?
I didn't think it was a scam until Tom Selleck assured me it wasn't a scam. Now I'm starting to think it's a scam.
Like you see
There's
Wilford
a
Brimley. You see
commercial that
Wilford
compares
Brimley.
to Tom Selleck where he specifically tells you that he's not scamming you.
Have you not seen this yet?
No,
It's the
I don't
craziest
know.
thing ever.
He's
Clay, you gotta
convinced
find
it's a
it.
reverse mortgage. He's trying to convince elderly people to reverse mortgage their homes.
Yep.
And he's doing it in such a charming way that you're
Yes.
like, shit, I wish I was 75 years old so I could sell my house for you, Tom Selleck.
Tom.
But like when Wilford Brimley was promoting Quaker Oats, you didn't doubt that they were fucking oats.
No.
You knew they were oats.
Right.
This is not a
Like-
scam.
This is not a scam. Eat my oats. Like you knew it. Like Tom Selleck, he's
Oh my
doing some
goodness.
shady shit.
Oh, man, what disappointing news here on this this early evening on the West Coast. Okay, I've got Chris's pick at number 2. These are the statistics. This movie won Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Score, and was nominated for Motion Picture, Actor in a Leading Role, Actor in a Supporting Role, Actress in a Supporting Role, and Cinematography. This would have been at the 2006 ceremony at the Academy Awards. Here at number 2 with his last pick in the draft, Chris has selected Brokeback Mountain.
I feel grossly underprepared because what I should have done, knowing that I was probably going to draft this at second place, I should have had ready to just like hit play and you'll hear
the
the
score.
bow, bow,
Yeah.
bow, bow, bow.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
And
That's
then
my
we all just
Gustavo
get really-
Santaolalla impersonation.
Well, yeah,
Um,
Chris, I mean, if you wanted to stop the show in its tracks and we all just kind of get quiet and
I'll
like
vibe to that,
contemplative
like,
and wistful.
yeah. Yeah.
If we all just want to go and herd some sheep for a season
Under the
whatever.
watchful
Just
eye
real
of
quick.
Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid.
Oh, God.
Wild that fucking Randy Quaid is in this movie.
Amazing.
There's always one thing.
I feel like I'm drafting all the movies that it's like, what more can you say about it that hasn't been said? But the thing to say about Brokeback Mountain is I feel like it's a movie that every time I watch it hits me even harder because it is just the depth of it. I think, I saw this when it came out. I was like a freshman in college or something. Sorry if that ages me. And like it didn't hit me as hard, but when you have like the life experience of just being alive and a person, and it's like all of these beats of all of the performances: Anne Hathaway, Michelle Williams, Anna Faris.
A great cast of like women who would end up being bigger deals than they were at the time.
Kate Mara, Linda Cardellini.
Yep.
I'm saying all of the performances in the movie except for the 2 central ones, but I'll get there. I think the level of depth and really like human detail that Ang Lee and his cast get in this movie is it sounds like a cheap word, but it is profound. You feel so much when you watch this movie, especially if you're an attentive viewer to it and you can see the like minute cracks in performance that are happening. but I also like drafting this one also feels kind of important. I feel like, there's always a lot of discussion about specifically gay characters being played by straight people, especially for prestige or whatever. And this is like I think, case example for it's like when it can be done right, because like Ang Lee is also a heterosexual director too, but somehow understands the intrinsic humanity of what the story is, and not just like humanity in a grand sense. This isn't some like bland Pasek and Paul empowerment anthem. It is very explicit about what these gay men experience in the context that they are in, and it is constantly wringing their circumstance for context and like emotional depth. And this movie goes fucking hard. It's just, it is a romantic tragedy, but there is also something very bittersweet in the ending. And then you have Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal giving great performances. And I feel like Jake Gyllenhaal kind of became a punching bag for this movie, because he has the "I wish I knew how to quit you" line, which is just like, it's so easy to make fun of because it's so earnest, and it's like, if you don't make fun of it, you almost have to feel the depth of what those words mean. Yeah. And if you do, it's shattering. And I do think that this is a movie that, like, me, when I first saw it, I was a dumb fucking 18-year-old gay guy who didn't get it because, like, that was not my circumstance. I think, this is a movie that, if you really pay attention to it, it does, I don't want to say force, because, like, that's not the type of director Ang Lee is. It really does put you in the place of what these men's life is like, even beyond the romance of what it would be like to be that type of gay man and express masculinity in a certain type of way that feels incongruous to you. The movie does that incredibly well. Brokeback Mountain's really good.
Really good, yeah. Beautifully made and performed movie. Of course, a victim of the Crash Oscars there of 2006.
Moment of silence for the Crash Oscars.
Obviously, this is a title, one of the most prominent, one of the most famous Oscar-winning queer films. I'm sure people were expecting it to show up on this list. How do you feel about its placement by Chris there at number 2?
Yeah, not to get ahead of things, but like there were two movies I thought were in my clear top 2, and I was ready to flip a coin between the two of them. So I'm glad that Chris made the selection, and I believe things are shaking out quite well. It's one of those movies, I think Chris sort of said this too, where it's just like, what else can you almost feel like the temptation is to go the other way with Brokeback Mountain, if only because where else can you go in the direction of how good it is, except that's the only thing to talk about, because it was and I was a little bit older than Chris, again, not to date myself, but even still, like at that moment, it was such a landmark thing if you were paying attention to movies and into, prestige stuff, focus features. Lord knows, talk about our podcast. Lord knows, I am a focus features boy. It was a landmark movie. It really did feel like this was a turning point in gay cinema, just in terms of the way that it was received and how prominent it was, and we really did think it was going to win Best Actor. It's kind of hard to watch this movie now and see Heath Ledger and not feel incredibly sad, but what a legacy to leave behind with such a great performance like that. It really is so deeply felt. I do agree with Chris, though, that like Gyllenhaal kind of gets you almost feel like he gets a little bit of the scraps in that conversation, but he's so good. He
has broader stuff to do, though. Like that, his. Sorry to interrupt you, Joe.
No,
but, like his character has to do broader work than Heath Ledger has to do. And it's like I like the dichotomy of it when I watch the movie, and it's like Jake Gyllenhaal's best stuff is not actually with Heath Ledger. Jake Gyllenhaal's best stuff is with his father-in-law.
This is the thing, is Ennis is so much wrestling with himself, right? It's in the way he talks, right? It's like the words are struggling to escape his throat, and Jack is in conflict with and wrestling with the world. It's not just Ennis, but like even with Ennis, it's a struggle to get out of Ennis what he wants. But it's also, you're right, it's his family, it's his in-laws, it's his job, he's the one we see out in the greater world. He's the one we see sort of having to embody that part of that gay experience there, and be the, you know, existing in this realm but not being able to be fully authentic. And there are moments where we do see him start to be out in that way, and we see that other sort of side to him. And, you know, wonderfully cast. It looks fantastic. The cinematography is so wonderful. The score is lovely. Like, again, you know, what can you say? It's a great movie.
A great movie here at number 2. Another Marquee of Fame entrant, Brokeback Mountain, previously played on the show by Daniel Crook on the Queer Romance Draft. So there you go. Another Marquee of Fame entrant. 2 in a row here with All About My Mother and Brokeback Mountain. There's only one pick left. I'm going to get Billy Ray's thoughts on Brokeback Mountain, but there's only one pick remaining. Lots of great films still possible there for that number 1 spot. In the comments, tell us the title that you want to see at this number 1 spot.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
all the pressure.
And Billy will throw Billy. This is like second time I keep calling you Billy. And Billy Ray will throw some of those up on the screen just to make Joe nervous as he tries to decide what to play at number 1. Billy Ray, you love a Western. You love love a queer story. Brokeback Mountain, how do you feel about this movie?
I feel really good about it. I will say this. This was one of those films, I saw it when it first came out, and I had a very muted reaction to it. And it's one that's grown on me over the years. I think I was one of those people for a long time who was like, yeah, it's overhyped, it's all this shit. And then once I actually started watching it years later with some time removed, it was like, it's a really great film. And part of that is like, not a lot of international directors can make such decidedly American movies as well as Ang Lee, like Ang Lee, sorry. But like you look at like Ice Storm and Ride with the Devil and Brokeback Mountain, and like just incredible work all around. And you know, I adore this film now, and I think it's all because of Randy Quaid. I don't know I don't know that there's anything other than Randy Quick Change Quaid to enjoy about this film, frankly.
You boys really found a way to get along up there. That's my Randy Quaid, thank you.
But boy, do I miss Randy Quaid. But yeah, no, this is a great choice, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's a great choice. I expected it on this list. I'm glad it's here. As you see, I've started adding some comments about what needs to be added at the number 1 spot.
Oh, interesting. People are thinking it's either going to be Moonlight or The Hours. Midnight Cowboys, interesting choice. Okay. Brokeback Mountain there at number 2. Oh, Chris has some fans.
She means I'm young.
Oh, a baby.
I felt like either of those would have been a nice ego boost.
Either one works, Chris.
Joe and I are canonically young, so
yes, of course. You know. Okay, we've got 1 pick remaining. Joe, you've been seeing some of these opinions from the comments on what ought to be in the number 1 spot. It's a lot of pressure. But it's pressure that you wanted. You wanted to carry this pressure, this burden on your back here at the end of the show.
I did. I said that there were 2 movies that I thought should have ended up at the top of this list. These are the 2 movies that did end up at the top of the list. So
same. I'm guessing.
Hey.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, Chris, do you think you know?
I think I do. I think he is going to pick what I was trying to engineer at number 1. If he does, I at least have done something today. I have rerouted my incepting skills.
All right, Professor Xavier.
Yeah.
Oh, Right. Here we go. We are down to the end. And as I said, all the vetoes have been used. So this is going to be the final list for the Oscar-winning queer films draft with Joe Reid and Chris Feil of This Had Oscar Buzz here live. We had so much fun. We're not going to leave quite yet. We're going to do the final list, talk about the movie, talk about discards quickly. But so much fun here doing this live show for Seattle Queer Film Festival. And again, thank you to Billy Ray for inviting us to do this. Thank you to Chris and Joe for joining us. This is the final list. Number 7, The Times of Harvey Milk. Number 6, Frida. Number 5, Call Me By Your Name. Number 4, Cabaret. Number 3, All About My Mother. Number 2, Brokeback Mountain. And the number 1 Oscar-winning queer film of all time, it won Best Adapted Screenplay. It won Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role. And it won Best Picture. Was also nominated for Best Supporting Actress, Best Directing, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, and Best Original Score. This is at the 2017 ceremony. At number 1, Barry Jenkins, Moonlight.
Thank you for saying the correct film, Clay, and not doing a bit.
I was gonna say for our listeners, we should have done a bit and said it's the hours. Nope, it's Moonlight.
I know. Listen, we'll get into the hours of it all in the discards. Yeah, it's Moonlight. It's one of the, again, like, I feel like I'm not gonna get any particular credit for picking Moonlight on the top of this list. It is a choice that feels very much obvious, and yet, like, the movie's not an obvious movie. It's a movie that is, for a movie that has, some pretty heavy themes in it, it's incredibly rewatchable, and that's due to the filmmaking quality and the performances in it, and the way that it rewards you for, catching these little moments in particular, Trevante Rhodes and Ashton Sanders and Alex Hibbert playing the 3 ages of Sharon in this film are all, the poster sort of famously, combines all of their faces into one, and it's so intuitive to what one of the great things about the movie is about how these 3 actors sort of like team up to deliver this great portrait of this one man at different stages in his life. But Mahershala Ali richly deserved to win that Oscar. Naomi Harris is great. Andre Holland, my God, if anybody's going to rival the mom from Call Me By Your Name for best smoking in a movie, I'm going to give it to that shot of Andre Holland. Holy shit. It's just a beautiful movie. There's just 8 billion, there's so many frames from that movie that you could just hang on your wall in a picture frame. You know what I mean? There's so many iconic images in it, from the 2 boys on the beach to Mahershala Ali, floating the young Sharon in the water. That moment where Janelle Monáe, they're having a conversation at the table, and she just sort of silently just shakes her head to Mahershala when he's about to sort of get into a little more complicated conversation than the little kid is maybe ready for at that moment, and she just sort of nods him off. She's phenomenal. I saw that movie I think 3 times before that Oscars, and I am somebody who I am very much on a mission before the Oscars. I got to make sure I've seen everything once. I very rarely get a chance to rewatch things before the Oscars, but I managed to just see that one multiple times because it was so hard to not go back and revisit it. I don't think I'm, breaking any new ground here by saying that this is the number 1, but there's no other thing I could have done.
All right. According to Joe, the obvious choice at number 1, but it is very cool that a movie that is so bold and original is so fully embraced that it starts to feel like it's just part of the zeitgeist and the firmament, to where people are like, Moonlight, of course. When it's no, it's Moonlight, is truly a special film. Chris, everyone was everyone. was expecting the two of you to personally be responsible for putting the hours on the Marquee of Fame.
I did that would have been the reason for me to play it, is if I could have gotten the hours on the Marquee of Fame, just me, I would have been the proudest person in the entire world.
First of all, I don't know what category you think you're gonna have. Maybe this should have been the category, but like, listen, we'll be back on the show. We'll get it on the Marquee of Fame. Just calm down. Trust and believe. I mean, yes, sometimes the obvious choice is the right choice, and for all of those things that Joe said, I mean, especially the symmetry, the congruity between the three performances of Trevante Rhodes, Ashton Sanders, and Alex Hibbert. Like, in my lifetime of movies, the 30 whatever years I've been alive, like, very few as impressive feats of directing as how similar those performances are, especially like there was no other choice. I'm glad that my engineering worked to get this at number one, and also because it won Best Picture too. It had to be the number one.
It won the ultimate award at that ceremony that night, and then won the ultimate award this evening as well. Yes, hey. I wish I could be getting drunk with you, Joy. I have somewhere to go this evening. I have to get in my car and drive into Hollywood tonight, so I could not get as inebriated as I would have liked to. But thank you. I'm glad everybody's having fun out there. I'm sure Barry Jenkins as honored by this as he was by the Oscar. Billy Ray, Moonlight, number one.
Yeah, it was my number one. So this is another film that, again, like Brokeback Mountain, the first year or two after it came out, I was very much like, I don't know that this film really lands for me. And I was one of those, like, maybe it's overrated. But again, like, the more I've watched it and the more it's grown on me, it's like, no, it's really not. It's so well made. It's so good. Barry Jenkins is just, kind of on his own plane of filmmaking in a way. Like, if you've seen Underground Railroad or you've seen like just a very different sort of filmmaker in a great way. And so I think this is a perfect example of what he can do well. And it's just a phenomenal film from top to bottom. I'm super glad it's number one. I think that meant that a film that I have a huge soft heart for did not make the list, which we'll talk about in discards, I'm sure. But I'm glad this is here regardless.
Glad it's here regardless. And somewhere, presumably on stage at the Aero Theater in Santa Monica, Ryan Marker is convulsing wildly because Moonlight is joining the Marquee of Fame as well after being played by Ryan at number one on the A24 draft back when we did that. Well, there you go. That is the list. Round of applause for Joe and Chris. Well done, gentlemen. People on the boards seem to be pleased. Let's talk about discards. Chris, you drafted first. So, Joe, what are a couple of movies you were considering that did not quite make the cut?
So, yeah, we've been on this podcast a couple other times, and a lot of the movies that we drafted on those podcasts would have been eligible for this one. And I decided I didn't want to do overlap just because I wanted to talk about other films. But, like, a lot of those movies could have made it. Obviously, The Hours is my favorite movie. Like, I probably would have played it on this list somewhere if I hadn't already. But The Favorite, Monster, Victor Victoria, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which, remember, did win an Oscar for costumes.
Yes.
It's any of those movies I would have been happy and proud to have put on this list as well. Also, I had made a pretty decent case. I had so many notes about Philadelphia here because if I had a lower pick, I would have played that. That is a movie that, again, has a very complicated legacy for a very long time. I think gay people especially sort of looked at that movie as not going far enough, not telling enough of a queer story, letting straight people tell that story. But I think with some time and perspective and sort of seeing that movie for what it is and where it was. Yeah, it's a movie that speaks to a straight audience, but it does so really beautifully. And Jonathan Demme is an incredibly humane filmmaker, and there's a lot of really, really great stuff in that movie. It's a movie. Watch it again. I would say to people, watch that movie again and go in trying to figure out, why is this movie called Philadelphia? Why is it not called Andrew Beckett? Why is it not called anything else? And it is about this man's right to be able to exist within his community at work, his community at family, his as a citizen of a city and a world and humanity. And it's underrated at this point. I would say it's a very underrated movie.
All right, almost making the list there, Joe. Philadelphia, compelling case for it. Regardless, very interesting movie. Chris, what are a couple of discards almost made your list? We have to assume The Hours is amongst them.
Right. I mean, like, the one thing about Joe and I is we are both people who like to spread the wealth. So that is part of the reason why I think we ruled some of those out. I seconding all of the things that Joe said about Philadelphia, with all of its complicated history and a lot of those other things. I mean, I think that's a great movie. I loved Jonathan Demme. Jonathan Demme is maybe, for me, the reason why it's so great. And as far as it speaking to a straight audience, I mean, if you compare it to the movies that might be similar, like maybe a Dallas Buyers Club or something, Philadelphia is not making, I think, the mistakes that some of those other movies are making. I mean, I guess I focused a little bit on trying to get some queer artists in there on the actual list, which is, I wanted Pedro in there. Maybe one of the ones I might have ranked a little lower is Gods and Monsters. Bill Condon is take it or leave it, probably the most successful gay director in Hollywood. Granted, his most successful movies are the Beauty and the Beast remake.
You forget Roland Emmerich, sir.
We all forget
Roland
Roland
Emmerich's about
Emmerich.
to crash the moon into the earth, so let's get ready for that.
And we're
the
grateful
moon
for
isn't
it.
what we think it is. We keep forgetting this.
The moon is cheese.
I for my whole life, I've looked up at the moon and had the thought, I know what that is, and I was wrong.
I mean, is he making this?
Blown, Clay.
Is he making that movie just so people can post? We all heard that the moon was made out of cheese. I mean, come on.
I guess so.
Gods and Monsters, though, Gods and Monsters is also another movie that I thought about as far as, the biopic thing, and I decided to go with Frida because it's about James Whale, who was a gay director, and you definitely see queer themes in James Whale's work. But I also am a Bill Condon defender. I love the movie Kinsey. Dreamgirls, I think, is insane. It's insane to me how underrated that is as a screen musical. Brilliant. What else might I have chosen? Let me look at my... we could have also done the actual biopic of Milk, but I think... for what doing that and Times of Harvey Milk wouldn't have made any sense. Plus, I think the things that Times of Harvey Milk is doing are a little more unique than that other movie. And then we have I didn't want to pick something like Beginners because it's a gay story, but it's not necessarily gay centered.
I rewatched Beginners this week. It's still not my favorite movie. I
Joe
wanted to
doesn't
like it
like
better.
Beginners.
I wanted to like it
Beginners,
better
but...
the second time, and I couldn't get there. But that's me.
All right, so not too many discards. Seems like Joe and Chris are pretty happy with the final list. Billy Ray,
yes.
You teased a movie that you got a big old soft heart for. Is it one of the ones that Joe and Chris talked about in the discards?
Well, the main one is Philadelphia for me. I adore Philadelphia. I get that a lot of people have issues with it. I think it is a tremendously made film. I think it is a tremendously empathetic film. And I think for no other reason, Tom Hanks and the aria and the spinning camera, one of the great scenes in cinema as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
And for anybody who likes to talk about Tom Hanks being overrated, just watch that scene and then tell me he's overrated. Also, Other films, like someone mentioned in the chat earlier about Dog Day Afternoon, I think that's an amazing film. I would have loved to have seen that. Kiss of the Spider Woman is another film that I'm a big fan of, and then Capote, just because I think Capote is so well done. That film rests solely on Philip Seymour Hoffman's shoulders, and he carries it so beautifully. And but otherwise, but all that said, like, I'm nitpicking. Like, it really is a great list. So.
Capote was one that, like, that's a movie that I love too, but I think given the subject matter, I wasn't necessarily as like compelled to pick it, because like that's an incredible movie. I love that movie just like you were describing too, but like also thinking about like what the subject was and what was fitting for it. That's why I didn't think of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had wanted to rewatch Dog Day Afternoon too before this, and I didn't quite get to that because I wanted to sort of watch it again with an eye specifically towards the sexuality aspects of that movie, and I didn't quite get it, so I didn't want to like, speak out of turn about that a little bit. But that's definitely one of the great movies.
Yeah,
one of the great movies. But we've got a list full of undeniably great movies. 3 new entrants onto the Marquee of Fame. And of course, the first appearance of Call Me by Your Name, an historic episode of Screen Drafts. Any way you cut it. Thank you to everybody for watching live. We loved having you here. We loved seeing the comments. I know people are tuning in from around the world. Billy Ray, I think you put up a comment from Rose in the UK. This is
Good morning, Rose.
Chris, they're so mad at you for not mentioning the Twilight movies in your Bill Condon talk.
That's because the context that it came up his box office successes is talking about his bad movies, and I actually think that the Breaking Dawn ones are the good Twilight movies.
You've crossed the Twilight people.
Look,
sorry, that's because I was trying to not say that the Breaking Dawn movies were bad when, like, I realized that some people think that those are the bad ones.
You can backpedal all you want, my friend. You've stepped in it.
Look, we all know that there's only one bad Twilight movie, and it's Eclipse, and the rest are perfect. We can all agree on that. No, we're all agreeing on that, and we're moving on, Chris. That's what's happening. We're at the end of the show. I have a question for Joe and Chris. Have you guys on your podcast done a Prairie Home Companion yet?
No, but I want to.
I will tell you something.
You want to come on and talk about that?
I am, as we've established, born and bred in the great state of Minnesota, and I was on set for that movie. I appear as a featured extra, so I would be honored to appear on your show talking about a Prairie Home.
Consider it done.
Well, I'm going to follow that by saying, have you discussed the Goldfinch?
We have
not.
No.
Do you want to do the Goldfinch? Because
I would love to do the Goldfinch.
All right.
I would love to do the Goldfinch or Life Itself.
Oh, I would do either one of those.
Life Itself might be the winner. That would be
I didn't know we could just claim Life Itself. That'll be the most fun episode you've ever done.
I just claimed it, Clay. That's what just happened.
Well, maybe we can both do. I give up Prairie Home Companion. That's a respectable movie.
You were on the set for it. We have to have you for that.
I know. Okay, we'll figure it out. Guys, so much fun. What a blast. Thank you to Seattle Queer Film Festival. Thank you to everybody for listening. And most of all, thank you to the hosts of this Had Oscar Buzz, Chris Feil and Joe Reid. A great list. Great game. I love it when all the vetoes are used, but it remains largely copacetic, I would say. Okay, and look at that. We hit 100 comments. Everybody's engaged, having a good time. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Billy Ray, what's coming up later today at the festival?
Well, when I get off of here, I'm going to be immediately headed to our centerpiece screening called Being BB, which is about Bibi Zahara Benet from RuPaul's Drag Race.
Hell yeah.
Then we have a film later this evening called Death and Bowling, which is from filmmaker Lyle Cash. It's an entire trans cast and crew, which is really exciting. And that's what's left for tonight. And then we've got amazing stuff all week long too. Like you've
got another live podcast with some friends of ours.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, Monday night, 7 p.m. We're going to be doing a live recording of the This Ends at Prom podcast with BJ and Harmony Colangelo, the Colangelo wives, who are amazing. They're going to be discussing a film that we're screening here at the festival called Hetero. And then on the 23rd at 3 p.m. we have a live edition of the Disability After Dark podcast, which is hosted by Andrew Gurza. He's a Canadian podcaster. He's a queer disabled man, and it's an amazing podcast. We're going to have comedian and author Jason Stewart on that podcast with him as well. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, that's what's coming up. If you're not in Seattle, you can check out those things on live streaming like we just did this show this evening. Yeah, that's it. That's all we got, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you check out both This Had Oscar Buzz and Screen Drafts there, where they can regularly be found on the internet. And we'll see y'all later. Okay, one final time. This is the Screen Drafts Oscar-winning queer films draft as drafted by Chris Feil and Joe Reid. Number 7, The Times of Harvey Milk. Number 6, Frida. Number 5, Call Me By Your Name. Number 4, Cabaret. Number 3, All About My Mother. Number 2, Brokeback Mountain. And the number 1 Oscar-winning queer film, Barry Jenkins' Moonlight. Sweet.